Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lifehouse podcast. Now, what? We're really excited to continue along with the Road Less Traveled series. And today we have Julianne speaking with us. Hi, Julianne.
Hello.
And we're going to get to hear more about her career path. She's had a lot of diverse experiences, so get excited. We're going to hear all about them. So, just to start, Julianne, if you could kind of tell us about the role you're in now. We'll backtrack later to kind of more of your high school experience, but what is the role you're in now?
So I am the Director of Leadership and Engagement Programs here at the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce. Really what that entails is I run our Leadership Gainesville program, which is a 10-month course in leadership development and learning more about our Greater Gainesville region. It's actually the longest running leadership program in the state of Florida. We are on class 52. Um, Obviously, I've not been running it the entirety of that, but but that is one. I also launched and manage our Greater Gainesville Young Professionals group, which is for individuals 40 and under in the community. I run the Alumni Association for our Leadership Gainesville program. And then I also do a lot of other engagement opportunities here at the Chamber, whether that be events or programming or things of that sort, and running our social media for the young professionals. So a long list.
Very cool. Well, all very community focused. That's great to hear. And I'd love to kind of dive in more into what brought you to the nonprofit sector. But first off, did you have a certain dream job growing up, or specifically when you were a teenager? What did you see yourself doing?
It's funny to ask that right now because my father's moving out of the house that we've been in since I was like 17. And so it has all of our childhood items, and I've been kind of going through them. And the thing that I always said was that I wanted to be an actress, a singer, a writer, a fashion designer, a model, and a teacher. So I don't know how that all flowed together. But that's kind of the two different things that I always wanted to be, was either focusing like on theater, on, stage presence and that kind of a deal. Or on the flip side, being a teacher. I don't really remember why that was so appealing to me. Maybe it's just that I really liked my teachers over the years. But yeah, those are kind of the two main that I really focused on for majority of my life. Like as I got older, I would say that I kind of narrowed it down to more wanting to be like a TV personality or helping in the entertainment sector in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, very cool. It's actually funny that you say that because thinking back to when I was growing up, more younger, not so much high school, but I kind of had those same aspirations of being an actress or kind of being a figure in like the world of pop cultures. But you definitely made more strides towards that path because I know you have a background in theater from Kira. So I'd love to hear more about what you did with that.
Yeah. So basically from high school, so I started doing theater, and music and all of that when I was like 8 years old. And so over the years, done a lot of live performance. I was on the Thespians, group and won some awards there throughout high school. But once I went on to college at Santa Fe, I specifically focused on theater, which kind of becomes an all-encompassing educational path because of the fact that you're taking those core classes, of course, but you're also taking like costuming and makeup and stage hand and like all of the behind the scenes aspects. But one class in particular that my professor in the theater program kind of in a sense like created for myself and another student as a more like specialized independent study kind of program was acting for the camera. So we specifically focused on that kind of aspect of like interview styles, commercials, film, everything of that sort, which realistically really has benefited me with the public speaking aspect of my life. Um, with, we have a podcast with the young professionals, so that aspect. And I'm still able to do like television opportunities with our local station too. So I kind of wear several different hats. But yeah, so I would say that everything just kind of morphs as time goes on. I guess that's the best way to say it. And so post school, I was a server at BJ's Restaurant and Brew House.
Mhm.
And that was during school as well.
Right.
And then from there, kind of led into marketing. My parents were like, have you ever thought about marketing? You would be really good at that. And I never really understood why it would make sense for me. But I'll never forget someone saying to me that, well, you understand marketing because you've been marketing yourself since you were a child. Because going into, theater and everything of that sort, you are essentially a product and you are, marketing and selling yourself. So that aspect of things just really made sense to me. And yeah, I jumped in head first.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really cool to see how you were able to combine all of those passions. And I'm also a marketing student, so definitely understand the idea of kind of having a personal brand and like having it in these things, maybe like alongside your job and your career, but also kind of your personal life and your own passions. And then another question, just I have a kind of a lot just from all of that. It's really
Nuts,
interesting.
something.
Yeah, really interesting to hear about your career path and everything. But just to start off, you mentioned like going back to high school, you mentioned your parents kind of making you aware of the idea of marketing and like pursuing career in that. Would you feel like them or anyone else in your life was really influential in allowing you to follow a path that was maybe regarded as less traditional to college, like kind of following your passions in theater that you developed throughout your life growing up and
Mm-hmm.
leading into college?
Yeah, I would say so what was really beneficial for me was the fact that my parents were always supportive. That is
Uh-huh.
really, really true. And the fact that they were supportive enabled me opportunities to um, feel comfortable like I said, like public speaking and getting involved in more things in the community so that being in front of people was no longer so like scary and intimidating. Um, so going from there to then with high school, I actually started out because I'm from Jacksonville originally. So I
Okay.
started out going to Douglas Anderson School of the Arts in Jacksonville for theater. Um, my parents ended up purchasing a franchise here in town. And so we moved to Gainesville because of that. And I finished my high school experience here in Gainesville at Buchholz. So it was very different segueing from a very structured arts high school arts program that like quite honestly like focused more on the creative side of things than even like those core classes. You still
Right.
had the core classes, but I had like 4 different theater classes that were mixed in there as well. Um, so that really created like a really good platform, a really good foundation for me in that world. Um, Here in Gainesville, it was less intense, less focused, but I still had that support and those opportunities. Um, and then really all throughout college, I think I had an idea in mind, but it just really changed and morphed over the years. Um, and I've always said like you you reach forks in the road and you take them or you don't. But thinking that everything is going to happen exactly as you pictured it is very unrealistic.
Right, right, right.
I mean, especially if, like, I'm always very transparent in the fact that, like, I came from lower middle class. I did like work my way through it. There were no, in me outs. And I think that that's kind of a good thing to remember, that like, unless you really have that silver spoon, like nothing is going to line perfectly in your life.
Yeah.
And even then, some bumps in the road happen. So, yeah, that was basically went from there into marketing for a local company. Did that for about 2.5 years. Really had the opportunity to completely like immerse myself in that world, which then opened me up to more of the like social media aspect of marketing and direct mail and then the sales aspect. Suddenly I was doing sales, and in my brain that was like gross. Like, it's such a transactional experience, right? So you feel like it's disingenuous, but it's not unless you make it that way.
Totally.
So went from that, uh, became really connected in the community because of that, because I participated in a lot of organizations, like membership organizations such as the chamber. And that's one thing I really push with younger individuals is getting involved and like actually participating in groups and honestly making yourself uncomfortable. It's like,
Mhm.
it's not the most fun thing in the world for most people to network. It's
Right.
scary and uncomfortable and all of that. But had I not immersed myself in that, and I really started doing that when I was like 21, 22, I'd be in a really different place today.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, I
I'll
think
keep
that's a good
rambling.
lesson. No, you're totally fine. I mean, I had many questions like leading into this, but you've been able to answer a lot of them, which is great. And our listeners will really appreciate all of your insight. I think just kind of stressing lessons that you've learned later on in your career, like the value of networking. I think that's not really something I was exposed to until I got to college. So, like, kind of just explaining to students how they can just continue to meet and learn from people around them and just kind of grow your network in that way is really important, I think. Something specific to kind of your transition into the marketing sales role and then to your current role at the Chamber of Commerce. How did you navigate kind of having your personal pitch in your interviews or kind of just explaining your experiences without formal training in like marketing or a sales sphere of things? And then going along with that, and you can kind of just take this question by each part, but going along with that, how would you say your theater background and your experience at BJ's working at the restaurant,
Mhm.
how would you say you developed skills there that kind of transition into your career now?
Okay. Um, so basically, I think part of the theater aspect of, like I said, being able to sell yourself is part of what, really assisted me in, actually getting these jobs, right? Without really having that background. Um, a lot of it had to do with the fact that I am able to express that I'm willing to learn and capable of, learning rather quickly. Most, I would say, especially now, workplaces are very open to someone who is less experienced and has less of an educational background. Um, and that's just willing to try, willing to learn, and progress. So I think that's a huge piece of it is portraying that. But I also think that a lot of it does come down, especially in sales and marketing and development, come down to how you present yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So walking in with confidence and being able to hold, a conversation with these individuals so that they do feel comfortable, believing in you and investing in you. I think that had I not really had the experience of the background in theater and just a lot of interactions with like older individuals because of that as well. Had I not had that, I don't believe that I could get someone to, believe in me, right? Because I wasn't really believing in myself yet. So, and quite honestly, I wasn't when I first jumped into marketing. I was very unsure about what I was capable of doing. I knew I could talk to people, but I wasn't sure about anything else. So that first position was definitely more sales and direct relationships, more on like the external side of marketing versus internal. But
Mhm.
the internal marketing is what I like grew to learn and get to know better. Um, and then from there, ended up moving into a nonprofit position. So I worked for the Epilepsy Foundation of Florida. And the way that came to be, and this is again why I say the networking is so important, is realistically, the past 3 opportunities that have been given to me were because of my connections more so than me, um, reaching out to some external uh, area. So, working with marketing and sales, I ended up starting to do fundraisers and like one-off events for the Epilepsy Foundation, just as a volunteer. I got diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 16. So it's a cause that's very important to me, obviously. So I just kind of jumped headfirst into increasing awareness. They weren't putting on many events at the time, and I filled that. And then from there, I was approached by them to actually come on full time and focus on development and events, and everything of that sort for the organization, um, which was a really, really awesome opportunity. And I definitely really recommend, jumping into a position that is going to be something you'll be passionate about, because that also helps with the learning aspect as well, because you really want to learn, because you really want to be better at that job. Um, it, the nonprofit sector is really difficult, to be quite honest. I think that anyone that jumps into it, if you believe like, oh, because I love this cause, it'll be a walk in the park, it's not. um,
Yeah.
the thing that I always remind people is, the nonprofits are focused on their mission. So that's where majority of their funding is going, is to their mission, as it should be. However, that then ends up with team members taking on even more than what their job description may say. So it kind of turns into like an all hands on deck scenario. Um, but I think that while that can be stressful and a lot to manage, time management is super important, but also having leadership that supports you, um, because it's not, the nonprofit sector doesn't mean it has to be miserable, right? Uh,
Totally.
really takes individuals, like a good leadership team, quite honestly. Um, and if you're not really experiencing that, or if you don't see growth opportunities, then it's really time to move on. And that's how I felt at the Epilepsy Foundation. There really wasn't growth opportunity for me, felt a little stagnant. Um, and so I kind of began looking, but very loosely looking. I wasn't applying to any jobs online, just kind of keeping my eyes open. Um, and that was when I got approached by the VP of membership development here at the chamber. And I had been involved in the chamber the whole entire time. And he came to me, and his specific words are you still happy with your job? And I said, no. And he said, okay, well, do you want to come in and talk about you maybe coming and working for the chamber? And he had mentioned it to me before, but I always thought it was like kind of jokingly. Uh, but yeah, no, he was very serious. I came in and had a meeting with him and the CEO at the time. Um, I don't think, I don't even think we did a second interview. A week later, I got the job offer, and yeah, the rest is history. But I started as a membership account executive. So realistically, in the realm of like leadership in the chamber, I was like at the entry level.
Yeah, right. Working your way up.
Yes,
Totally.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, well,
Did I answer
that's
all the
really
questions?
completely
Okay,
and more. That was
okay.
extremely interesting to hear from someone who has been interested in the nonprofit sector. I've also kind of talked to other people in those areas, and they've kind of had the same theme of what you were saying. So for listeners who are interested in the nonprofit sector, like understanding that the work you do is kind of all encompassing. You kind of can touch upon a bunch of different fields and different job tasks. So that's really interesting. And it's a very hands-on job. So that was really like good, realistic view of kind of how it would be to work in that. And then also what you talked about earlier on, just kind of the importance of keeping those connections. Same overwhelming theme I've heard talking to professionals. It's just these opportunities come to you. You don't know when they'll come, but most of
Right.
the time they'll come from people that you have relationships with that maybe see you doing well in this job at their
Mhm.
company or another mutual friend's company. So it's just
Right.
really important to maintain those and kind of put your best foot forward in all of the situations. And
Yes.
then kind of you having your leadership role at the Chamber of Commerce, I wanted to ask you specifically, what traits do you see in good leaders and what traits do you think are the most important to develop early on in your career?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Uh, for me, I would say that the strongest leaders are those that leading back to the passion, that are passionate about what they're doing because you
Mhm.
lead by example. So if you are only half invested, then why would your team be any more than half invested?
Right.
So I think leading by example is a huge piece of it. I think that transparency and communication is a huge piece of a good leader. Uh, you know, eh, I describe it as your your team doesn't have to know every turn that you'll be making along the way, but they need to know where you're going. So, and how they can best support that journey along the way. So, if you're not transparent, if you're not communicating, then you're falling short as the leader and your team will not succeed. So I think that's a huge piece of it. Uh, Providing compassion and having a pulse on what the people around you may be experiencing. So, uh, being able to support them, uh, being able to recognize, I think a lot of times reading the room is a very, very important tool, whether it be for public speaking purposes, for interviewing purposes, or for, speaking with your team, like talking on their level. And I don't mean that as a talking down or anything of that sort, as much as it is yeah, reading your audience so that you're able to communicate with them in the way that they need. Um, yeah, I think that those are probably the most important pieces to me, other than uh, innovation. Um,
Mhm.
you know, and the willingness to change and grow. So no one is ever done learning. So, and especially in a world that's ever changing, you need to be paying attention, be constantly learning, be constantly a part of the conversation. So I think that the strongest leaders are also those that are not um, stuck. You know, change is scary, but it is inevitable. And a lot of times it is beneficial. So I think that that's also a super, super important thing, as well as being able to not only give feedback, but receive it as well. Uh, A lot of people have a hard time with that, but constructive criticism is a thing. And certainly can lead to, you growing. And, quite honestly, when you're able to effectively receive feedback, you also are strengthening the relationship with your team as well, because now they know that you're receptive.
Yeah, definitely. I think feedback is a two-way street, and you being able to take that constructive criticism and be coachable, and then also expecting that of your team, I think that just goes a long way for your own leadership purpose. Also, you kind of touched upon just growing throughout your career and growing your leadership. Something that we talk about a lot on this podcast is our definitions of success and kind of understanding how they change throughout your life. How would you
Yes.
say your definition of success has evolved and into what it is now?
So for me, when I joined the team here, so my specific role was because we're a membership organization, so to bring on new members as well as help our current members. So essentially, when you're looking at job descriptions or job titles, my job was new accounts and account management. So that was specifically what the focus point was. And at some point, uh, leadership at the time really tested me. So they asked if I would put on an event for new members. And I could do it at any point during the year. The structure of it was up to me. And I knew as soon as they asked it that this was like an opportunity to like prove myself. And so once I put on the events and really put a lot of thought into it, that was positively received by our leadership. And I think that increased their belief in me and also expanded the realm of tasks, responsibilities, and things of that sort within the chamber, but also instilled the confidence in myself that, oh, you could do events. Like you can create experiences for people that are positively received. So, went from there to then becoming our development manager, went from there to then becoming our director of member development. And at that point, I believe that was when our CEO and I had been requesting the opportunity for this for a while, but I mentioned how I wanted to establish a young professionals program for our chamber. In specific, I wanted it because our community is so full of young professionals that it would be beneficial as a way to kind of draw people in to get them ready for connecting with the community and leading on to those further opportunities for growth. So, and just connecting with people, because let's be real, it's kind of hard to make friends once you're not in college. Um, so I wanted to create that. A lot of Chamber of Commerces across the country already have those, and we never did. So I got a green light to do that right before COVID. And so that kind of halted things. And I didn't get to have my first event until February of 2022. When that event happened, we had like 250 people come out to that launch. So really reinforced the fact that it was a need in our community. And so at that point, I became not only the development or the director of marketing, member development. I then also became the program director for the young professionals. And so I was balancing the two, which was definitely difficult, but you work through it. And then August of last year was when I completely transitioned into just programming. So along the way, my previous supervisor was a huge impact on my growth in my career, because had he not invested the time and support, um, I wouldn't I wouldn't have gotten all of the experience I got in the sales sector, which utilizing that sales mentality, not mentality so much as like the experiences that you have there and the situations that you're put in because of sales. It's not always a yes, and it's not always people being nice. So being able to experience that more and then utilize that in future opportunities was really huge for me. And I would say the same thing for being in the service industry. I always say that everyone should have to work either in the restaurant industry or in retail because
Mm-hmm.
it teaches you a lot. It really, really, customer service is going to be a centerpiece no matter what career you do. Um, you're always dealing with people. So being able to train that aspect of yourself when you're in retail or in the restaurant industry, it really becomes something that you can use for years to come. Not to mention, it makes you a way more compassionate person when you go to a restaurant or you go to a store because you actually understand. You understand what they're going through. And if they're a little behind on things, you know you've been there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely something that I've heard. My parents always encourage the same thing. You just learn so
Mhm.
much being working in customer service, and what you said, it really does apply to any job. I know my own high school job at a restaurant, I learned a lot about it, and it's things that I can still apply today. So that's really great advice. Um, I think you kind of gave a lot of different experiences, and you shared what you've kind of done leading up to your career now, and it's kind of a lot of applicable things that students can take and start implementing in their own lives. Is there a specific small step maybe that you can, just like thinking back to your high school self, is there a small step that a student can take maybe this week or this semester if they're curious about kind of figuring out what they want to do and just creating their own career path?
Yeah, I think that, um, I'm going to go back to the relationship building. I think that's a
Yeah.
huge aspect when you have individuals in your life that you look at that might be doing what you're doing, or what you're wanting to do, rather. Uh, mentorship is huge. So if you're able to connect with someone and, you got to make the jump, you got to make the ask. But if you're willing to do that, it'll be a game changer. I would say another thing is I am a huge, huge believer of internship opportunities. It opens a lot of doors, especially if you actively, participate. The interns that we've had here at the chamber were able to build relationships that led to future jobs, or just build relationships where they were really able to learn and grow, even if it was just amongst the staff here, then learning from us, like that also becomes a game changer. And internships are great for your resume too. So
Totally.
that
Yeah.
that I definitely highly recommend. And for the record, we have had and would have high school interns, so keep that in mind.
Great opportunity for everyone listening. And I 100% agree. I think internships are not only a great way to build your resume, build your professional experience, but also just to understand what's out there and what you like and don't like. So that's great advice. And
Mm-hmm.
then just to wrap it up, I think this has been so incredible to hear from you. I think there's been such great advice and ideas that students can really take away from this. But just to wrap it up, we it's entitled Now What? So we kind of like to end the episodes with you finishing the sentence, now what I know
Oh,
is, and then fill in the blank.
okay. Uh, so now what I know is leaning into your strengths versus having a one-track mind is incredibly important. And in particular, the one thing that really opened my eyes was being asked what my purpose is. And that being, what are you good at? What do you love to do? And what actually creates an impact on the community and the people in your life and that around you. Um, and for me, what I ended up realizing through the theater background, through all of the things, uh, was that what mattered most to me was creating impactful experiences and being able to bring people together. And that's really what I do right now. And so that aspect, I now know, recognize your purpose versus anything else, and then having an open mind of how you can best accomplish that and utilize that, whether it be where you were thinking you were going or somewhere off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's great. Great way to finish the episode. Thank you so much, Julianne. It was really
Of
amazing to
course.
hear from you. And I'm excited for everyone to get to hear this episode soon.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. Well, then we'll just wrap it up now. But looking forward to everyone in the Lighthouse fam hearing this soon, and continue looking out for different social media reels and different additions to the website. We have lots of great resources for some of the things that Julianne talked about, getting ready for interviews and just understanding what's out there. So definitely look into those. But thanks everyone for listening.